Hello, and welcome to Fantasy Island. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, that's a drinking game now, folks. However many times I say just kidding, you should drink a non-alcoholic beverage of your choice. And with that being said, welcome to our Halloween show. This is PRT, Paranormal Round Table. I'm your host, Josh Turner, also known as Wolf. And I'm excited to be here, although I'm a little under the weather. As you can tell, I'm a little nasally. So the whole show, I'm going to sound like this. My lovely assistant, my wife Nellie, is here.
Hello. And
we have Tony via Skype because Tony had to work because of a cold snap we had here in Texas. It's like in the low 40s, high 30s. And so vehicular problem with one of our guards. And so Tony's going to try and do it from the job. So he's going to be doing double duty. So if you hear him out there cracking heads and arresting people, you know that he's doing his job. And he's also doing the show, right?
Exactly. Superhuman.
Superhuman. We didn't want to disappoint you people. So me and my wife are a bit under the weather. Tony isn't. Anthony's in the studio with us, and he is not doing good either. He's sick, and so we are all under the weather. And so let's get started with the initial here. We got Paranormal Round Table, the group, Paranormal Encounters, which is your group, Tony, and Paranormal Lounge.
Which is my group.
Which is Nellie's. And we are no longer affiliated with the other two groups. Michael Moran still has his group, and he's doing what he's doing. I'm no longer an admin in that group. I just did not have time to devote to that, and I didn't think it was fair to him. So he still has his group, and the other group, Cryptids of Paranormal Reality, has kind of fizzled out because Lori Shivers is no longer on Facebook. She has stepped down, and so without her there in place, I decided to take my leave and just focus on my main three groups that we are growing. And so be sure and check those out and go and join those on Facebook. Our website is prtpodcast.com, prtpodcast.com. You can go and check out our inventory. We have a lot of different merchandise you can purchase for PRT.
Yeah, we have I was talking to Anthony pretty recently. He was telling me about a bunch of new stuff that was going in, like these masks and these backpacks. And I was looking at some of the new merchandise that we had brought in, and I was pretty impressed with it. I mean, I'm wearing one of the PRT hoodies right now to keep me warm.
Yeah, and we have the Kung Fu Grip action figure, wolf action figure. You got to get that. That's going to be cool.
No, I don't know about that. If it wasn't one of me, then maybe, but I don't know if it's just
they had the crying bobblehead doll. It was the Mushu bobblehead one. I know that one was the big one. Right, Anthony? Didn't they have the bobblehead? Yeah, Tony. Yeah, so anyways, Anthony's put in for that one. So you can get the crying Mushu, the whiny Mushu. You pull the string and it whines and complains about things that only a Mushu would complain about. And then you have Nellie, Nellie's, and she just kind of like sits there really mousy and just whatever. But then when she's not on the air, she's really mean and bossy and controls my life. And yeah, she has the two personas going.
Well, being the face of the show, being a bobblehead, I think it just makes sense. I mean, whatever, I guess, but I don't think it'll be fair for us both to have action figures because I know mine would sell out so well and make yours look so bad. So
exactly. You're talking about Nellie's figure, right? You're talking about me.
Thanks.
Oh, Nellie was here? I didn't even notice.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, like I said, the store has great stuff, and just go check it out.
Yeah, we have artwork. We're also going to do an artwork competition that's coming up probably sometime next month. We're going to put that on hold because we have to do Halloween and get this done. Plus, we have the 100th episode coming up, which is going to be a little different. We're going to do something for the 100th episode. We were going in one direction, and then we decided we didn't know what we were going to do exactly. But this is the Halloween episode, so we had to make it good. So we have to give you, what you want. So even though I'm sick, laying in bed, and could barely move, I had to spike myself up with all kinds of antioxidants and all kinds of medications and all kinds of supplements and eating raw garlic. I was told to smoke meth too, but I'm going to hold off on that because A, it's illegal, and B, I have high blood pressure. So maybe once I get that high blood pressure under control and it becomes legal, then maybe we can see how that does.
And he'll be single.
Yeah. I'll have no teeth and I'll be in jail. So, folks, here's what's going on. Go out and check out the prtpodcast.com and check out we have fan work and we have a store, we have archives. And so let's go take care of that. Go get on Facebook. Even though I know a lot of people don't like Facebook, whatever, just go get on Facebook so you can be part of the group. And we're going to set up links to the paranormal on Paranormal Lounge, Paranormal Encounters, and Paranormal Round Table. And we're going to pick, this week's going to be a little different. We're going to pick a winner from each one of those. And we're going to give away more merchandise. We're going to give away PRT merchandise. So that's what's going on in this show. We're going to pick, and so we're going to give away coffee mugs. We're going to give away a PRT backpack. And we're going to give away t-shirts. So just get on there. And when we put the link up for the show on Paranormal Encounters, the group, Paranormal Lounge, the group, Paranormal Round Table, the group, we're going to choose a winner from each one of those.
The new and improved coffee cups.
Yeah. These coffee cups are like amazing coffee cups. You know how you get the infomercials where these people, it's funny because they can't even figure out how to close. Are you tired of tripping over Legos? Get the Lego Finder 5000 so that your feet don't bleed because of your kid's irresponsibility. And it shows them smacking the kid with an X over it. Don't do that. Then it shows them lifting the kid up in praise because they found the Lego Finder 5000. That's kind of how our coffee mugs are. They're so good that they should have their own infomercial. Are you tired of your coffee spilling all over the table and burning household plants and pets? Are you tired of your toddlers being rushed to the emergency room because of your horrible coffee mug choice? Well, check out the PRT coffee mug. Folks, this will still happen if you overflow it or throw it, so I'm not going to sit here and...
Look stylish. What's more important, though? I mean, look foolish or look stylish? That's what really matters.
Exactly. It's not really PRT. Safety or anything. It's not really going to save your household plants or pets or from, in those commercials, they always have the little squares, the cats flying across the room because it got burned with hot coffee, landing on the draperies, the toddler's crying, and and in one corner, there's like some sort of building exploding or something going on, car crashing. And they're like, tired of all this? We'll buy this coffee mug. See, these are high quality coffee mugs, the kind that we should be doing infomercials for. That's what I'm letting you know right now. Okay. And we will absolutely not give you a choice in which style we give you. And that is, you know what? If you order now, you will not enjoying your coffee mug in no time. So, so that being said, we have a show. It's a Halloween show, and I know it's going to be a day early, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about several different categories. We're going to go over some different stories. And like I said, I really didn't want to do it. I was not feeling good, but the show must go on, as they say. And so you have to do the show because that's what the fans want. The fans want to hear the stories. So that's what we're here for. We had two other possible talk show hosts that were going to be sitting in with us, and they canceled. And one in particular was sick, and so there's a lot of people sick. We've had two workers sick, which is maybe where I got it from. I'm not for sure, but then my wife got it, and Anthony got it. Everybody's getting it. So yeah, it's going around, whatever it is. I'm pretty sure it's not COVID because, we're doing okay. It feels like a cold. But I felt like crap yesterday and the day before, and I thought, I don't know if I'm able to do this, So if I could have got this done yesterday or the day before, I would have been able to have those hosts on, especially before one of them got sick. So he had done a lot of research for me, and so I'm going to have to wing it with that part of the show. But we're going to go ahead and get started here. All right, so make sure that we're going to choose someone from the chat, from the chat that comes up on this show. We're going to choose somebody from there too. So we're going to have 4 winners this week. Okay, so be sure and jump on, make the comments for the show on those different groups, and you might be chosen to win some merchandise. So that's what's going to happen, and somebody's going to be chosen from the live chat also. And we do honor our promises. When we say we're going to send you something, we're going to send it to you. So let's get started. It is a Halloween show. So I thought that, what's going on? You were going to say something?
No, I wasn't. I was going to try and make a ghost sound, but my voice is so raspy.
Oh my God.
It wouldn't work. I'd probably sound like a
Well,
gargling gargoyle.
It's probably a good thing you didn't, because it looked like it was going to start off bad. That's why I was like, "What are you doing?"
Oh man.
So you know what though? Your voice isn't too bad. You actually
Sound better than normal.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Well, yeah. I think you're doing better than I thought you would do. That Venus flytrap that you smoked, I think, is really it's helping work for you. So, anyways, Tony did some research too on a subject that we had worked on together, and I want to start off with this one. This one is going to be kind of interesting. It is Halloween, so we're going to start off with pirates, and So I say pirates with a question mark, like you can't see that, but that's what's going on in my head, and so this happened in Galveston. This first story we're going to get into, and like I said, Tony's going to chime in because he did a little research on this, and it was pretty interesting. We got a story from a listener, and Galveston Island is located off the coast here off the Gulf of Mexico here in Texas. It's a well-known vacation spot. It's not my favorite beach. I like to go to Port Aransas. Most people like to go there or to South Padre or to Padre Island proper. But I have been to Galveston several times. We went to Galveston summer before last. We went to Moody Gardens, Anthony and Nellie. That's a pretty nice – they had some nice stuff there, But it's not my favorite beach. But it was at one time a hangout for pirates. And one in particular, a very infamous and famous pirate. So what happened to these people that I'm going to get into? They are what we would here in Texas refer to as snowbirds. They live in Texas and live in the South and in the wintertime, and they're retirees. And he was actually pretty young for a retiree, though. He retired when he was in his 50s and did really well. On a startup company and sold some stock, and then he ended up retiring. And this happened I think 20 years ago. And so what transpired would terrify anybody. This gentleman and his wife were walking along the beach, and they encountered something. What I'll tell you though is that there is even an area in Galveston known as Pirates Beach. There's a Pirates Beach. And there's like a Pirates Beach rentals. You can rent like these cabanas and stuff like that. Well, there's an RV park further down, which is I think it's Jamaica Beach where that's at. And so where that's at, they were walking down the beach from where they had their RV parked. These snowbirds, we call them. They were originally from Delaware. And he and his wife had never seen anything like this. Now, I got in touch with these people through a friend of mine from the old days that I knew. And he said, I got a ghost story for you, but I'm going to get you in touch with these people. And the guy knew them because eventually they bought a vacation home down in Galveston. Now, my wife was like, hey, we should buy a vacation home in Galveston and one of the, or maybe Port Aransas. And I was like, yeah, until a hurricane comes and wipes it out. So that's the danger because it's in Hurricane Alley. And in fact, there's been several hurricanes that have hit Galveston. One in particular was very devastating. And we'll get into that in a minute, and I'll tell you the history of this. These people were walking along the beach, and they heard splashing, and they heard talking. And they didn't think anybody was out there. It was like 3, 4 in the morning, and they were walking along, and they heard it behind them, which was odd because they didn't see anybody as they had passed this particular spot. They both turn around at the same time, and they see what looks like a rowboat. And 2 men taking something off of the rowboat. Like the way he described it was he described it in detail. It looked like a wooden box with rope handles on it. And these 2 guys were pulling it off, and they were speaking what he believes was French, and that they were speaking in like kind of half French, half English, and the other guy one of them was speaking completely in French, and they were removing something from the rowboat, and then when they looked out to see about 400 or 500 yards out, they could see what looked like a galleon, and he was like, when he described the ship to me, I knew what it was. He said it looked like like a 19th century, like early 1800s, and I did some research on it, the way he described it. Perfectly fits a description of a pirate ship from like the early 1800s. And I say pirate ship because the flags that were waving, he said that it didn't have the Jolly Roger that he could see. He couldn't make it out because it was like a greenish haze. But I really believe that that's what it was. And when he saw these two gentlemen, one of them looked up at him. He had a hat that looked like kind of like a fedora type hat, the way he was describing it, but not quite. Didn't have a feather in it or anything like that. And the other guy, it was wearing an overcoat. And he said that the first guy had like a white shirt with the puffy sleeves and all, and he just completely described late 1700s, early 1800s dress. Like that's how these people were dressed, and that one of them began to wave toward the other one because the first one wasn't really paying attention. He was kind of looking around, and he said that they noticed him right away, and that immediately the second guy pulled out from his belt what looked like a pistol. So he said that in this pistol, he couldn't see it like perfectly, but in the moonlight and with that green haze, which kind of had a glow to it, he could see that it was one of these one-shot pistols, like these flintlock guns that they had, back in those days. And he began to wave it toward the other guy, and the other guy drew what looked like a cutlass. Like I'm talking stereotypical like pirate gear. I mean, these guys like literally were in the middle of doing whatever they were doing, and they didn't like these two interlopers watching them, and so they began to give chase, and they were stunned. They were like, these two costume freaks are literally coming at us. They're chasing us. And he said, at first I thought that it was some sort of like they were just goofing around or something, and he said that they were yelling at them, and that when they took off running, one of them was saying arrête, which means like stop in French, and he was telling him to stop. And so of course he didn't turn around. He didn't say, oh, okay, I'm going to go ahead and let this guy run me down. He obviously continued to go to get away from them. And so what ended up happening, they ran, and he said that he ran until his lungs burned, and they turned around, and when he was pretty sure that they had outdistanced them, he said he turned around, and the first thing he said when he turned his head, he noticed that the ship that was out in the ocean was gone. He looked back. The rowboat that was there, it was gone, but there were these two green orbs, two green balls of light, and that they were kind of bouncing off of each other and still giving chase. And so they chased them literally all the way back up into their RV park where they were at. They had to come back onto the road and cross the road and then go, and these things bobbed and weaved and kind of followed them. And he said eventually, once they got back to the RV park, they went and they got in their RV, and they were scared, and they were terrified. And he said that over the next week or so, he was having dreams. And one of the dreams he said he had was this guy knocked on his door, and when he opened the door, the guy said something in a language he couldn't understand. But he said that he did a little research on the words, and he figured out what it was. And I'm not going to try and repeat it. It was in Latin, and it said that, and basically what it translated to was like, those who watch are killed. So yeah, so he said that was it. They decided that they weren't going to stay in Galveston, and so they left.
I would too.
And this is not a super common occurrence, but I have heard of people seeing these specters or entities off the coast of Galveston. There was a friend of mine that worked on an oil rig years ago, and he said he was coming back into shore, and they literally crossed paths with what looked like what would be a French or Spanish galleon, like a big ship, and they were like, "What is that?" And then before their eyes, it faded away. His story was a pretty short story. That's all it was just like a pirate looking ship, And he said that it looked like you could see the crew. He said that they looked like people, And right before their eyes, it just kind of faded away. So that's that story. And so I thought I'd start off with that one. Now, a little history on this, Galveston thing. Do you want to get into that, Tony? You want to tell us a little bit about the history?
Well, before we get to Galveston, we got to really start in France because, we follow actually just the pirate life of one guy who really started everything. His name is Jean Lafitte. Mm-hmm. And his brother Pierre Lafitte. Pierre. Yeah, but when they first came to America, they started a little smuggling business in pretty much in New Orleans. And they kind of just had that's where he came when he first that's where they first started. And during the War of 1812, New Orleans was attacked, and General Andrew Jackson came and requested help from John Lafitte and his brother and his little gang to help him defend New Orleans. And if he did that, he would pardon them because they were technically smugglers and all that stuff. So after he did all that, and he decided that he couldn't really stay there anymore and continue his operation in New Orleans, and that's when he decided to move to where we now know as Galveston. And he started that little his little area there, and he started building a little small cove of about 100 to I think it was 100 people, a couple females, before he actually was forced to leave again.
Yeah, the area was, I forgot the name of it, what they called it, but it was eventually destroyed.
It was a Capanche. They organized a commune called a Capanche on the island.
Yeah, on the island, and it was literally a stronghold for pirates. And John Lafitte was actually a pretty rough guy. He attacked Spanish and English ships with pretty regularity. And and one of the things that he was offered, he's really an American hero too, though, by the same token, because he was
for what he did in the Battle of 1812. Apparently Andrew Jackson, this guy, Andrew Jackson, our 7th president, he's a general at this point, but in his life has had about 100 duels. I mean, there's 100 people that thought that Andrew Jackson is a life or death. I would rather die than one of us has to die to continue. He's when speaking about him, he said he was the most ablest man during the battle, and that should tell you a lot.
Yeah, and the Battle of Orleans actually took place after the war was over, but it still happened. Yeah, and John Lafitte played a role in that, and he was approached by the British and offered £30,000 and a full pardon if he would turn against the Americans, and he did not do it. And he was rewarded for his loyalty by having his community destroyed by American troops.
They confiscated a couple of his ships and they attacked them. Mm-hmm. Instead of actually, it was just ridiculous.
Yeah, and so, but they took $600,000 worth of, which back then was a lot of money, $600,000 worth of treasure that they took from him and took to the United States Treasury, which became part of the United States property. But Andrew Jackson, when he became president, of course, him and Lafitte were friends, and so Lafitte got a new lease on life. His death is still disputed, and nobody knows exactly what happened. But one of his lieutenants continued to hang around Galveston. Ultimately, was hung in the town square, in the downtown area. And supposedly, there's a tree there that's still, I don't know the whole. I did not get into a big old long. But they claimed that for years that there was gold and silver that was washing up onto the shore. And during the hurricane of 1900, a cannon, because it was only a rumor that 2 cannons had been sealed up full of treasure that was taken from the British and from the Spanish. And the British had been, we had been at war with them. This was the second war against the British. And the British had been seizing American ships and had been bullying us. And John Lafitte and his kind of even the odds. They were privateers, but after the war was done, America was like, well, we don't really need your help, So he hid his treasure in these 2 cannons that were actually used in battle against the British. And it was always a rumor that was real. But then after the hurricane hit in 1900. Okay, which is still to this day the greatest natural disaster that's ever happened in the United States. It killed over 8,000 people. Now, to put that into contrast, in contrast to the 9/11 was less than 3,000. So 8,000 people were killed in the hurricane of 1900, and it did millions and millions of dollars worth of damage, which in today's money would be probably $1 billion. And one of the cannons actually washed up onto the shore. And they opened it up and they found tons and tons of gold from Spanish and English ships that he had sacked. And so he had done a lot of damage to the British Navy, and he was wanted, by the British big time. And many believe that he eventually died. Some people say he came back to Galveston and died, that one of his people had killed him. But one of his lieutenants was eventually taken into custody because he continued piracy, and he was hung. So who knows what those people saw, what they actually saw on the beach that day? Nobody can really say. They may have been pirate ghosts, they may have been Jean Lafitte's people. I mean, we really don't know. I mean, there's no way to really to ascertain that, but that is an interesting story, and I thought it was pretty cool. I got that one back in the spring, and I told Nellie, pirates, ghosts, I'm going to save that one for Halloween, right?
Yes.
And
I mean, it seems like a perfect one. Yeah, I mean, it was really cool to read about too, because he's led a pretty interesting life. I mean, I've kind of just skimmed through it because I know that we have a pretty long episode, so I didn't want to, just drag it along. But even like the last thing he did in Galveston, which was like in 1820, some of his lieutenants attacked some U.S. ships. So the U.S. was like bringing a bunch of pressure on him. So the next year, he just decided to take a crew of men on his ship, burn the original talent of Galveston, and just continue down south to raid the Spanish Maine for several more years.
Yep. And so it's very, very interesting story. And thank you for doing the research on that, Tony. I was going to have Ryan Tremblay, and he's not been feeling good, so he didn't get to be here today. But he did some research on another story that involved water. And I told Nellie, I was like, we could do a whole show just on water stuff. We were going to do, but I thought, well, we got to mix it up because we're going to do this Halloween show. So I'm going to give Nellie the option here to pick the next story we're going to get into.
The one I really like and I want to hear about is the blob stories that you have.
Which ones? There's 2 or 3 of them.
All of them. I like the one that you were talking about on 6th Street at the.
Okay, my friend Jeanette.
Yes.
Okay, yes. All right. That's a good one. All right, guys. And now that club, I don't know. There's a club that was right next door to a bar, and my brother remembers this incident, and I'm sure Scorpion does too. But our friend Brandon, who used to work the door for us, he started working the door over there. And I never went into this bar very often. And the guy that owns the bar is still there, so I don't want to, I don't want to step on his toes or anything. And so the bar is still there, and I didn't get any permission from him to talk about it or whatever. Although Jeanette is a friend of mine, and she does not care if we tell the story. But
is the blob still there?
Well, okay, I'm going to tell the story. You going to let me tell the story?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, just very curious about this. Here. This is a weird story, folks. I've had this story for a long time, and actually, this story was slated to be in the Halloween episode last year with
Halloween
with Chief.
Oh yeah, with Chief.
Yeah. So that story was slated to be told when I was with Chief on the Halloween episode last year. And it ended up not being Tony, were you in the Halloween episode last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
The
Yeah.
main point. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You were the main guy. I forgot. So
yeah, the most important.
Yeah, the most important one in your mind. And so, anyways, this story was slated to be told on that Halloween show, and we missed the window. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to. So I was in one of the groups that I'm in, and I'm in about 100 of them. And somebody had said something about a gelatinous blob moving around in the woods. And so I asked that person, I said, can you give me the story? And they said, well, it's not mine, but I'll get you in touch with the person that did. And then one day, out of the blue, like months later, this person just hits me up and is like, hey, I just listened to your show. I think it's awesome. My friend told me to check it out because you got in touch with them on this group. And I don't remember which group it was. It was some paranormal group. And then they said, I got the story, and so I have this story about this blob. So I thought, man, that's 2 stories now. So I decided to go ahead and just save them. And then I thought maybe if I'll get, another one or something, then I'll. So sure enough, one of my listeners actually sent me one, not even, a month ago, probably?
Yeah, not that long
Probably
ago.
about a month ago. Somebody sent me another one, and I told my wife, I said, that's crazy. There's 3 of them now. There's 3. Now, I don't want to say that they're all the same, but there are some strange parallels, threads, if you will. Now, we'll get into the first one, okay? The first one that my wife was referring to with my friend Jeanette, and that she actually worked at this club as a bartender, and my buddy Brandon had started doing the door over there. And he told me, he said, you need to talk to these bartenders. They're talking about this weird blob of goo that comes up out of the drain. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, you collect weird stories, and everybody's known that about me. I've always been like that, I said, okay. So I went in there with my brother, and we had a few drinks one night and started talking to the head of security, whose name was Eric at that time. And I said, at the end of the night, I said, show me this drain. He goes, well, here it's crazy. He goes, what happens is when we pour the cleaners like to wash the floors, when it goes down into the drain, this blob of goo pops up. So I watched, okay, this is kind of funny. When I watched this happen the first time, I saw them scrubbing the floors with the brushes or whatever and pushing the water down into the drain. And I saw like this bubbling goo pop up out of the drain. And I thought, wow, that's impressive. Okay, you have a disgusting drain that needs to be cleaned out. This thing kind of just came up, a dark, blackish brown goo, and it just kind of floated off to the side of the drain. And I just thought, why don't you scoop it up and throw it away? And he goes, well, watch this. Now, here's what's funny. He goes over to it, and he starts to poke and prod at it with a stick, and it just slides back down into the drain and goes away. And I'm like, whoopee-doo. Wow, that is an amazing... I was like, once again, I'm going to reiterate, you should just clean your drain. Clean your... What's up? You want to say something?
No, has anybody ever seen The Blob?
But... So anyways, what ended up happening, this is a weird story. I'm going to tell you, this is really weird. Now, I personally did not witness anything strange. To me and my brother, it looked like a blackish brown blob of goo. Okay. But we were later told, okay, hey, this thing, it actually moves around. Like it actually does move around. So, and supposedly in one corner of the club, and back then, this was years ago. Okay. Probably over 20 years ago. The camera phones weren't that great, okay? But they did have a picture of it, and they showed it to me, and they showed it in the corner of the bar. Like, it was a long ways from that drain. And I was like, what is it doing over there? Did y'all pick it up? And I mean, obviously somebody could have picked it up with a dustpan or something. It was about the size of a pie, like a pie you would buy at the grocery store. That's what I would say, maybe 12 inches around or something like that,
I didn't see it. I couldn't tell you.
I know you didn't. Thank goodness. I would never hear the end of it. So this thing, so it, and so what I did notice, so I went back over there and they showed me the little trick again where it comes flopping up out of the drain. And then now this is weird. When they sprayed water towards it kind of soaked up the water and it kind of it got bigger and it started to get more clear. Like the coloring started to get more clear. And then it did, when people would go toward it, like it did seem to go down into the drain. And it didn't like light. Like if you pointed a light at, now I can't verify that because I didn't see that. But my buddy, John, that worked there told me, yeah, if you shine a light at it, it goes down into the drain. I said, dude, if this thing is like some sort of actual living organism, then we should have some scientist or something come and look at this thing.
It was light sensitive?
Yeah, it was light sensitive. Yeah. I never told you that?
No.
Okay. Well, yeah, because I didn't tell you the whole story because you told me not to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anyways, this story is weird. So me and a few of my friends, I decided to do an experiment and let's see if we could catch it on fire. So here's what's really weird. When we were talking about it, okay, I was telling them when it comes out, we're going to try and see if it's flammable. Now, if it's soaking up any kind of alcohol or anything like that, because the alcohol is going to, from the bottles and the drinking and all that, then I thought maybe it might blow up or something. So that might be dangerous. So we're sitting there talking about it. And so everything they did to try to pour cleaner, everything to try to get it to come out of the drain, it wouldn't come out.
Well, it knew you were trying to catch it on fire.
That's what's weird. Yeah, because we were talking about it and it was like it didn't, like it was listening or something. It didn't come out of the drain.
Now I'm starting to feel bad for this thing.
Well, it gets worse. So anyways, this thing comes up out of the drain one night and Jeanette, one of the bartenders there, was eating a rotisserie chicken. Okay, now this is the story that we were told. Now, I'm not saying this is what I believe because what I witnessed and saw with my own eyes is not 100% for me to be able to say this is what was going on. Now, This is also in one of the same bars where they had supposed little people that were living in the walls. I know that I've told that story on the show back when Sal was my co-host. We were talking about the duende living within the walls. And
what color was it? You saw it, right?
The blob?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was like I said, it was brownish black, but it began to become more light colored as it got bigger.
Uh-huh.
Now, so anyways, this you need to try to keep up. Okay?
I'm sorry.
Okay, so
I'm not feeling good right now.
I know you're not feeling good. We're doing the best we can here. So anyways, this thing, this blob or whatever, was in the same bar. So I don't know. I started having weird thoughts, like maybe it eats the little people. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that's what it does. I'm not saying that that's what it is.
Or perhaps it's something that they're connected to.
Maybe
and
it's living off of the alcohol. I don't know.
Protects them.
Maybe they created it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. But anyways,
Probably not.
to me, it just looked like a puddle of goo that they were making a big deal out of. But according to Jeanette, the bartender that we all knew, she ate this rotisserie. And then Matt, one of the bartenders, she ate a rotisserie chicken. And Matt, one of the bartenders, said, "Hey, I got an idea. Why don't we give the bones and let's put it in the blob and see what it does? Like, let's feed it. Let's see what it does." So this is what they claim. Okay, folks. Now, I knew these people for a long time, too. They're not like, full of crap people. They said that while they were talking about it, this thing came up out of the drain. And he was like, "Oh, it's like it's hungry, So they literally threw the carcass of this rotisserie onto the blob. Not the whole thing, because it wasn't big enough. It would just be a gross sitting on top of a sludge pile. That's what it looked like to me. But anyways, they put this chicken on top of it, like part of the chicken. And they said that it just sat there, and it said that the chicken was immediately kind of developed and it kind of enveloped in this gelatinous blob type creature, whatever. They said the next day they came in that there were only little bones, little shards of bones inside this gelatinous mess. Now, I can't, that's hard to wrap your mind around. I'm going like, okay, so this thing literally digested the chicken bones. And so when my friend Brandon told me that, I'm going like, what? Like, it's really hard to wrap your mind around. I'm like, that just sounds too fantastical to me. I went over there and they showed me a picture of it, the post chicken bones, like with the pieces of it inside the blob. Yeah, it looked like somebody could have snapped little pieces of chicken bones and threw them inside of it or something. So it didn't really prove anything to me. But according to them, a couple months went by and I just kind of, forgot about it. Not forgot about it, but I just lost track of it, didn't talk about it. And one day I went in there and I was having a drink. And before my shift started, I was just having a shot, whatever, with a couple friends that had come into town. And the story of this blob came up and they're like, "Do you want to see it?" So when they started to spray and put like the cleaner or whatever on the floor, the thing bubbled back up out of the drain, which to me still could have just been sludge. But it was much more clear. Now, Nelly, you were asking what color it was. Okay. It went from a brownish black almost to a dark yellow, almost like it had changed color and become more clear, more of like I don't know how to describe it. And it's
translucent,
more
perhaps?
Translucent. There you go. And it just seemed like it was like it moved more fluidly. It wasn't just this little puddle of goo like it was before. It looked like it had more of like there were edges to it, like a shape. And like I said, they claimed that it was light sensitive, and they were like, "Hey, we're going to turn the lights on and off real quick. Watch what it does." Well, I had to leave. I was like, I have to go to work. I'm already late. I don't have time to sit here and look at your disgusting sludge on the ground that you don't clean. And so, so I left. Now, that story always intrigued me, but I thought, it could be anything. I mean, I've never seen anything like that before, like a gelatinous blob, and maybe they fed it chicken bones. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they were just trying to pull our tail. I don't know.
Well, from what you're telling me, it sounds like it wasn't dangerous, and it knew when someone was trying to hurt it, and it knew when someone was trying to feed it.
And then again, it could just be a coincidence that it popped up when they were talking about feeding it, and it could be a coincidence that it was just not coming out.
Alcoholic blood.
Whenever we were talking about burning.
Coincidence aside, I would just like to point out a very important fact. I know that a lot of us looked at movies, like scary horror movies, and we all think like, why would you make those decisions? Why are you so? Why, that's a dumb decision. Feeding an unknown blob and repeatedly taking it out of your sink, those are very stupid decisions. There's no reason why you should do that.
Yeah, well,
you have no idea what this thing is capable of, first off. So I want to be messing with it like that.
Well, I mean, it didn't jump on anybody's face.
No, it didn't do anything. In fact,
what if it's too weak?
Well, the owner of the club got tired of it because he said that the drain smelled, and it did have a funny smell.
What did it smell like?
Like sour liquor and like sewage a little bit. Ew. Yeah, it was pretty bad. But it was they decided to clean the drains, and so when it came up out of the drain, they caught it like they cornered it or caught it, whatever, and they poured like some cleaner all over it, like something, and it began to bubble up and pop. And then they said that it, according to the witnesses, okay, who, I'm gonna be honest with you folks, okay, these are people that drink all the time and party downtown. You're not gonna go, oh, you know what? You want a reliable witness officer? I didn't kill that person. Go and get so and so. Maybe they'll be sober. You're not gonna call them as character witnesses, okay? And I'm not gonna mention names. I'm just saying that I wouldn't call them as a character witness to my defense for something. So, anyways, these people claim that they saw it bubbling and snapping, and that it didn't make any noise, but that it kind of like flattened out and then turned to like a liquid and then kind of like just went down the drain and it was never seen again. So they actually killed it, I guess.
Maybe. Or maybe it just left.
Or maybe it just reconstituted and it's living under the sewers in Austin, because there are tunnels under the city in Austin.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's down
all
there.
All kinds of monsters down there.
20 years later, just eating up everything. Rats, little people, everything.
Yeah, there's some kind of underground war going on that we don't know about.
Yep.
Someone will pop a saddle on it and ride it into town.
Well, okay, so you would think that's a one-off, right? That's a weird story. Now, for years and years, I never heard anything like that. But then recently, like I said, not recently, I guess about 2 years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, I got a story about the girl that went. She was out in the woods. And she was hiking.
I like this one.
And she actually, she stopped to rest. And this happened in Washington, right?
Yes, I believe so.
In Washington, yes. And she stopped to rest, and she was out in the woods, and she was in Bigfoot country. Now, she was talking about, in the Bigfoot country, and she said, a lot of Sasquatch sightings out there. I didn't see anything like that. But I did have a weird incident with some gelatinous blob type thing. So I was kind of intrigued. My ears perked up because I had never heard anything like that since I worked downtown. And that was like 20 years ago when this incident happened with the blob, and hadn't heard anything like that. And so we started talking, and the person that was telling the story or whatever about a friend, and then I got in touch with her. And so what she told me was pretty intriguing. She told me that she was hiking, running on a trail, and then she stopped because she got tired, and she just decided to walk the rest of the way because she'd kind of overdone it, gone out a little too far. So she was pretty deep into the woods, and she said she sat down to kind of rest, and she was sitting at the base of a tree, but it was she wouldn't normally have sat down at all, but she was just very, very tired, and it was kind of wet outside. It had been raining a little bit, and she said that she felt something wet kind of drip on her hand. And she looked at it, and she saw that it was not rain. She thought it was rain because it was dripping on her hand. And she looked at it, and there were these little droplets of clear goo. And she said that they had almost like a purplish
tint to them.
Purplish tint to them. And that they kind of slithered off of her finger and dropped onto the ground. And she was like, ugh. So she shook her hand, and she looked up, and then she realized that it was in her hair. So she threw the little piece that was in her hair, she threw it off. She got up, she looked around, and she saw this bulbous ball of sludge, the way she described it, like it's kind of inching its way down the tree. Now, of course, I asked, is it a slug? No, she said it was just like a ball of goo, and there was other little pieces of goo. What was weird about it was that the ones that were kind of falling off of the tree were sliding back up toward the main piece.
The bigger piece. And she said that she kind of put her hand up to it. And she said that when she did,
the goo kind of went toward her, started going toward her hand, and she was like, "Oh my gosh!" So she pulled back, and some of it kind of leapt off of the tree and stuck to her hand. So she just kind of jumped back and was like, "Ooh, what is that?" So she just kind of looked at it for a minute. She said after she left it sitting there for a few seconds, then it started to burn. And once it started to burn, then she started shaking it off of her hand like, "Ugh, what is that?" You know, it's burning. You know, so. After that, she said that this is not a natural creature. I don't know what this is. She said it was very alien. And then she said she looked down and there was a bigger piece on the ground. And that the other piece that was on the tree began to make its way down the tree and then joined up with the little smaller pieces. And then the other big piece, they kind of shot together and made a big slime ball that was purplish pink, right?
Yes.
Purplish pink in color. Like a translucent ball of goo with with purplish pink spots on it, and then it began to move toward her, not fast, but like if you were briskly walking. So she began to run, and she just took off running, and you know, she said she got like maybe a mile down the trail, and she said that she looked down and she had some of it in her arm, and she shook it off, you know, and she got home, she took a shower, she cleaned herself up real good. And that was it. Nothing else came of it, but she did have red marks on some of that went away. Thank goodness. That's scary. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, that one's scary. That one wasn't friendly.
Yeah, I don't know what that was, but it was definitely carnivorous, in my opinion. And I think she narrowly escaped something that could have been really bad. How many people, though, you know, go out into the woods and you see something like on a tree, you don't really think nothing of it, and you just, you know, you go to put your hand there or something, you know. I mean, anything can happen.
Yeah.
You know? So that's that story. That's a pretty crazy one. I you know, but there's another one. Now, this one isn't nearly as dramatic as that one, but it's along the same vein. And I just got this one recently. Somebody had sent me one where they said that they were working in their dad's tool shed. Yeah. You can speak.
Sorry, my throat.
You were about to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say tool shed.
Tool shed,
yes.
Yeah. Tool shed. Thank you for making me stay on track here. So, okay, so they're working in their dad's tool shed. And this one came from a listener that said, hey, you know, whatever. And so she was a little girl, and there was a, like, you know, in the tool shed, it was once a carport. It was like the garage or whatever, and they converted it into her dad's workshop. And it was basically just a glorified tool shed. And there was a window. And she said outside the window one day, after it rained, there was like this gel that had kind of, I guess, come from the sky. That's what she thinks. And it was kind of like just clinging to the window. So she looked at it and she thought, oh, that's weird. So she went outside. It was absolutely see-through. It was clear. She went outside. She took a stick. She kind of poked at it. And she said that it unfurled. Like it flattened out and became like a ball. It was a ball, but then it unfurled and it was on the window. And she said that like right before her eyes, it like just dropped and just was gone. Boom. Like she looked around the ground. She couldn't find it. And she said she went back inside and she sat there just like in a like befuddled. Like what just happened? What was that just happened? And she said that a couple days later, she was out in the tool shed again because her and her dad were working on her science project, wasn't it? They're working on a science project, and this she heard like a boom, boom on the glass, almost like a tap, like something was tapping, but it was like a thud. And she looks up and she sees that ball of goo kind of, as she said, flipping down the window. Now, I didn't really understand what that meant. And I asked her to clarify. I was like, what do you mean flipping down the window? She said that it was like, there was a toy back when we were kids, and now she's
creepy
around.
Crawlers.
Creepy crawler, yes. Okay, you gave it away. But you'd throw them on the window, and she said it would flip and flop down the window, and it was like a spidery octopus-looking thing. Do you remember that?
I remember the commercials for it.
Okay. All right. So this thing that I had, the one that I had was like a blue, and my sister had one that was like red. I think they were different colors, and honestly, I think you could get them, too, in like, they were called wacky wall crawlers. And creepy crawlers, whatever. I think you could get them in like kids' meals or something, you know.
Oh, I want that in my meal.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I got mine from a Long John Silver's kids' meal or something. If my memory serves me correctly, I believe that's what it was because it was like a little octopus, and it had like a little. It was weird, but anyway, She said that it was very much like that. It was like flipping down the window, but it was on the window again. And she honestly believed that it came from the heavy rain that had fallen a couple of days before. Now, you remember in the story from the girl from Washington, same thing. It had rained, So it makes me wonder if these things didn't like come from the sky. I know it sounds weird, and it could be I don't know. It could be alien. I don't know what it is. But anyway, she said that she was a lonely child. She was an only child, that she had an older sister that was a lot older than her, and like 10 years older. So, the older sister, she was like 12, and the other sister was already like 22 years old. Was already out of the house. So she was a very lonely kid. So she started talking to this thing, and she said that it began to, like, whenever she would talk to it and tap the glass, it would unfurl itself and just kind of turn into like a flat ball, a flat round shape. And she said that then she started playing music, and whenever she'd play music, it would come. And then when her dad would come into the shed, it would like slide down the window and go away. Do the little flippy thing it did, and then it would be gone. And then she said eventually she went outside and she wanted to touch it and mess with it. And she said that she touched it with a stick, and it kind of like made this weird jump, like moved away from, flinched away from her. And so something just said, you know what, touch it with your finger. So she went to touch it with her finger, and she said that it kind of wrapped itself around the finger, but gently, almost like little appendages, like four little appendages wrapped around it, like, and it became almost like the shape of a starfish. And she just said that it just like she said that it vibrated, like it was kind of like vibrating, and she was holding her finger on it. And she said that it was like, it felt warm, like it was like, and she said that it was like friendly, according to her. It was very friendly, and that she had it for, like, she wanted to keep it as a pet. So she pulled it off of the window, and she started to walk around the inside of the shed and to say, "Hey, Dad, look what I got." And when the dad came toward her, it jumped off of her hands and ran, like not ran, but disappeared, like took off underneath some brush. So every time that she tried to get this thing around someone else, it would disappear. And eventually, she said she just lost track of it. Like it quit coming around. She never saw it again. That one day she went out to the shed. She played the music. She tried to get it to come. She waited and waited, and it never came back. And that 2 or 3 years. She betrayed
its trust.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Rotten kid. I'm just kidding, ma'am. If you're listening, you're not a rotten kid. You just did the wrong thing. That's all. You should have sold it to a scientific lab for lots of money.
No.
What?
The living thing, and it doesn't seem to be evil.
I'm just kidding. Why would I want to sell that for? How much money are we talking about?
Oh my goodness.
Anyways.
Look, I don't know much, but all I know is if I had to take a guess, it was probably just bored of that song. really wanted to hear a song, and she just wanted to play another one.
Well, that's funny.
She's like, this place is a drab because, I like hot beats, and this is not it.
Yeah.
And it just left.
That's right. Yeah, it was more to trance and techno. So I asked her about that. I said, what did you play? And she was like, well, whatever was on the radio back then, I would just play it, like, Cyndi Lauper, whatever, And, what was the other girl's name with the weird hat? Forgot we were talking about the other day.
I don't remember.
What was her name? The one with the weird looking hat or whatever. I
just remember Blossom wearing a weird hat.
No. I'm talking about the singer. She was like really popular in the 80s. I don't know.
Tiffany?
Was it? Nah, it wasn't Tiffany. It was, she was pretty popular. I asked her, I was like, I made a joke to her about that. I can't remember what her name was. I want to say Holly something. That's not correct. Started with an H or something. I don't know. Anyways, you're the big 80s music person. You can't even tell me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sick right now. You're kidding me?
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to keep using that as an excuse.
What is her name? Now you got me thinking about that. I was like, anyway, I said you should have played her. She was like really popular back in the 80s, and then you didn't hear nothing about her again. If anybody out there in the PRT land listening can tell me who
Samantha Fox? Did she wear a hat?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
This is getting worse. This is getting worse. And now I'm stuck on here trying to think about her. Debbie Gibson. That was her name. Debbie.
Yeah.
God, I can't believe you didn't know that. You're always correcting me about 80s people. Like you knew the Goo Goo Ya Ya, whatever that's.
Gotcha Goo Goo.
Gotcha Goo Goo. I had no idea what that was. I was like, I'm over there singing the wrong lyrics too, and you're like, that's not what they're saying, and then you're like correcting me. All right. So, anyways, we figured it out. It was Debbie Gibson, but I told her, I said, "Why don't you play her?" And she would, because she was like, "Well, I didn't think about it." I was like, "Well, there you go." So, Tony, I actually did tell her that. I was like, "What kind of music were you playing?" Because that might have been the difference there, you know.
The Fly Slug should have came to me. I would have played it some hot beats. I have a mixtape.
A mixtape? You have a tape deck in your car?
Not anymore, but I have one just so I can brag about it.
Oh my gosh!
I can't use it, obviously, but
well,
I still have one.
We're moving along here, folks. We're moving along. Nelly, you want to hit me up with the next story you want me to tell?
Yes, the one I want to hear is about the hand.
Oh, okay, yes. Well, I got two about hands. Are you talking about the one that went like?
Yes.
Okay, I know which one you're talking about. Okay, this is a cool story. Actually, I got this one. This one, I don't. You people at home can tell me what you think this is. This guy went through something traumatic when he was a kid. This happened in northern Minnesota. He was a kid. They lived on a farm. Now, if anybody knows, Minnesota is the land of the Vikings. It was anyway. They had a lot of Norwegian and Swedish, people who had moved up there. The immigrants were from Scandinavian descent predominantly. And Wisconsin too, but more Minnesota is known for that. That's why their football team is called the Minnesota Vikings. So this story is pretty cool. I mean, it was kind of terrifying for the kid when it happened to him, but he'll get over it. He's 55 now. So anyway, when he was a young man, he said he was a child. He was like in 5th grade or something. He lived up the road from these kind of reclusive farm people, and they were odd. He said that of course, a lot of people from that region, they have they were from Scandinavian descent. But he said that these people's grandparents spoke like Norwegian. Or he thought it was Norwegian. It could have been Swedish, but he said that it was definitely a Scandinavian dialect. And he said that he was invited to go to a birthday party, and one of the boys that was their age, he was kind of a bully, and he was invited to the party, and I'm pretty sure like he was invited because he was a bully. So the kid was like, I better invite this kid, and he said the kid they said the kid's name too. It was an innocuous name. It wasn't anything, whatever. And so this kid's name was like Derek or Eric or something like that. But anyways, he said that the mother and the dad looked very much alike, which he thought was odd. He goes, looking back on it, it was very weird that they were both dirty blonde haired, people like not dirty people, but like dishwater blonde hair. Yeah. And so but he said that they looked almost like they could have been brother and sister, which was weird. And he said that the mom showed up with, I guess, what was the grandmother, and they were speaking in this other language or whatever. And the whole time the kid just sat there and ate slice of cake after cake after cake and stared at the other kids and didn't really interact with the other kids. And he thought, man, this kid is so creepy, And so he said that eventually they were all jumping around, playing whatever. And this kid got up as everybody was running around playing tag and chasing each other. And he began to just shove kids down, which was like, he goes, okay. And so one of the mothers told him, no, you can't do this. This isn't the way to act. You're not supposed to do this. And so he got in the mother's face and said something rude to the mom. And so he was asked to leave the party. Now, he said that when he went to school with this kid, the kid barely talked. He had 2 older brothers who were the same way, and they were very good fighters. They had physical prowess. They were very tough. So they didn't really get taunted, but people just stayed away from them. Now, if they would have just been shy and reclusive and just kind of kept to themselves, it would have been one thing, but they didn't. They were bullies. And they would not say a whole lot, but they would, without warning or provocation, they would pick a fight and they would punch people and throw people around. And so one day, when he said he used to get a ride to school from a neighbor, and he said that eventually he ended up having to walk. And so when he went from the elementary to the middle school, he said that he had to walk by that farm, down that road or whatever. And he said that one day, the middle brother was sitting outside by a ditch, and he was trying to catch tadpoles, I think is what he said. Like they had a little bucket, and they were and he said that they were trying to catch tadpoles, and he said it was in the late spring or whatever, and he was walking by, and for months and months he had walked by that with no problem. But that kid told him, "Hey, what's in your sack?" And he told him, "I said I got my lunch." And the kid's like, "Well, give it to me." And the kid's like, "Well, he got smart with him. He said, well, why don't you get your own? This is mine. Have your mom make you a lunch or whatever."
Right.
And he goes, "Well, I want yours." And so just then he saw the younger brother walking up the road or whatever. And that middle brother told the younger brother, he says, "Beat him up and take his lunch for me." And so he's like stunned, like, "Oh my gosh, what did I do to these people?" And he said that he had actually been nice to this kid, the younger kid, at one time. And he was probably the only kid at school who hadn't gotten completely clobbered by this kid. So he said, "Okay, I'll give you my lunch, whatever. I'm not going to fight you." And the kid took it and gave it to his older brother. The younger kid seemed to be kind of slow a little bit. He said he seemed like he was a little bit slow compared to the other two. And he was kind of like, they're step and fetch it, go grab and get this and do that, go grab and get this guy, the grab and get guy, whatever. And so that's how they treated the younger brother, like he was their, errand boy, whatever. And so this kid got really upset one day when he was walking home from school. The kid was like sitting out in front of the yard or whatever, and he was crying. And so he felt, bad for him. He's like, the pit of my stomach. I felt really bad for this kid because I knew that his older brothers bullied him, And so he said that he was nice to him, and he gave him a piece of cornbread that he had left, whatever, piece of yellow cake. And he said that he shared it with him, and the kid just kind of sat there and ate it, and then got up and then gave him like a half hug, and then walked up the road, and they became friends. So after that at school, because people had used to pick on these kids because they were so weird, but then they got beat up by them, so they just stopped. He said that the kid kind of became his friend, and then he said one day the kid came up to him at recess and said, "Hey, you want to come over to my house after school? I want to show you something." So he says, "All right." And so he said that he went over to the kid's house after school. They walked, from the school or whatever. And he said that these kids were absent a lot. Like they would be in class and they wouldn't be in class. And he said that day they went to school. They walked to school together, hardly spoke a word. And then on the way back home, they got up the road, and as they were walking up the road, he could see the two brothers, or the older brothers. One was a lot older, and they were standing like in the barn or whatever, like this outbuilding that was like a barn. And as they got closer to the barn, he said, "You're going to be mad at me, but I got to do this." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" So he grabs him and starts to choke him and wrestle him, picks him up and drops him on his back, and then gets on top of him and begins to like slam him down and hold his head into the dirt. And the other two brothers come out, and they're laughing and cheering him on and telling him, "Yeah, beat him up, blah, blah, blah." And when he said that when he tried to fight back, this kid wasn't like that much bigger than him, but he said that he literally felt like this kid's muscles like popping up out of his arms and his shirt. And he said that when he looked at the kid's eyes began to turn yellow. And he said that it was the weirdest thing he'd ever seen. And then he said after a couple of minutes of this kid roughing him up, that he stopped, and the older brother told him, "Yeah, that's enough. And he's like, "He's too weak." Which I don't know what that meant, The kid didn't know what that meant. He was like, "I don't know what that meant. That was weird." And he said, "He's not strong enough, And then he's like, so he was curious. He's like, "Why did you attack me?" And he's like, "Well, my brothers want to make more of us." And he's like, "What does that mean? You make more of us? What are you talking about?" He goes, "We need friends. We need people that are like us." And he goes, "What do you mean like us?" And he goes, "You're not strong enough. We need somebody who's stronger. You have to have a strong body." And he's like, I don't understand. This is such a weird thing, So he said after this butt kicking, he didn't talk to this kid much anymore, and he didn't go around him. And then one day, he was walking by the farm on the way home from school, and it was the next school year or whatever. And he was walking by, and they were all three sitting out in the front by the little ditch, whatever, messing in the ditch with whatever they were messing with. At this point, he didn't really know what they were doing. They were just kind of digging around in there. And he said, what are you guys doing? He was just curious. He said, I shouldn't have said a word. I shouldn't even looked at him. And the guy goes, "Do you want to see a neat trick?" And the older boy tells him, "Why don't you come up to the barn?" And he's like, "No, I already know how your family is. You beat people up and you choke them and you throw people around and you're bullying them and you beat them. I'm not going to do that, And he says, no, we're not going to hurt you. I promise. If you can handle this, what I'm going to show you," he goes, "I'll give you a gift." And he's like, "Nah, I'm good. I don't want to." He's like, "Well, I'm going to make you. You're going to do it anyway." And he walks right up to him and he tells him he's basically going to give him a fat lip or he can walk into the barn with him. So the kid goes into the barn with him. This is where it gets really weird. They get into the barn. He tells the kid, "Sit down and watch what I'm about to do." And the guy takes his shirt off. The older brother, who he said was probably at least 8-9 years older than the middle brother. And he said that he was basically a grown man, but still a young guy, And he said he took his shirt off, and he said that this dude began to his body began to pop and gyrate. Like gyrate was my words, but he said that the way it was like undulating, I guess like it was moving back and forth, And he said it was almost like how a snake when it eats its prey and then it's kind of digesting it. And he said his body was moving back and forth kind of in waves. And he said that he held up his arm and he heard like a popping noise, like pop, pop, pop. He looked up and he saw his neck was kind of stretched out a little bit. And he thought, am I just imagining this? And he looks over and he sees the other two boys and they're sitting there and their eyes are yellow. And he says that the younger boy looked almost like he was like vibrating, like he was shaking, like he was like moving back and forth on his stool. And he looked back and he was terrified. He said, and the older brother held out his arm and then he lifted up his hand. And he said that his hand stretched, right, honey? It stretched like it went up about 3 or 4 inches, and the fingers began to recede and start to turn into like little nubs. And he said he watched this with his own eyes, like he saw this happening. He was sitting there looking at this, going like, "What am I looking at?" He said it was the weirdest thing he'd ever seen in his life. And he said that for years he thought it was like a dream. Maybe I just dreamed it, maybe it didn't really happen. And he looked over and then at this point, not only was the younger brother shaking and vibrating in his chair, the other kid was too. And he said that their eyes were rolling back and forth in their heads. And he said, "Dude, I'm out of here." And as he got out of the barn, he looks and he sees the old man, which was the grandfather, running towards him on all fours.
In human form?
In human form. And his arms and legs were elongated. He said, and that he was a good ways off. He was coming from the house. And he said that this thing was like was like running towards him. And he said that what was weird was it looked like at one point the legs were backwards and that they'd flipped around. And he was like, "What am I looking at?" And so he just took off running as fast as he could. He got to the end of the road and he said he didn't even slow down to grab his books. He just left them there and he just took off and he ran all the way home. He said he never ran so fast in his life. He said that the way he ran, in his whole life, he never could match that speed. He said years later he was playing football and he was he was like, "Where is the speed at, that I had that day when I was trying to get away from those people, or whatever they were." And he said that right after that, that the dad came to the house and talked to his parents after he had told them this crazy story. And of course, his dad and that guy kind of had a good chuckle and laugh outside on the porch. He didn't get to hear everything they were saying. And I guess their dad kind of smoothed it over and said, "Oh, my kids were playing a magic trick and, your son got traumatized. We're sorry. We didn't mean to whatever." And his dad came in and was like, "You're a fool. You're over here, talking all this weird, crazy stuff about people's eyes turning color and people stretching out their hands and all this weird stuff."
Poor kid.
And he said, "Just stay away from them. They'll stay away from you." And he said after that, they never really messed with him, but he never even looked in their direction, and that he walked 2 miles out of the way just to not go down that road to buy them or whatever. And then he said a couple years went by and his parents moved to the other side of town. They went into town on the other side, and he never had any interactions with those guys again. But what do you think of that?
I think scary. Go ahead, Tony.
I was going to say, that's what you get for being nice to people, That's why I try my best to just be as rude as possible, to give them no chance to invite me to their monster cults.
Well, it seems to have worked for you because you don't get invited for many places. So, yeah, that is weird. I mean, like, what would you think? I mean, what was that? Like, what could that be?
I believe it's a werewolf dogman, something in the middle of transforming right in front of him, just to torment him some more. Mess with his mind, scare him.
But he didn't see any hair come out.
Yeah, I don't think it was that. I think it was some kind of parasite or something that obviously reproduces in other people. But obviously, whatever they do, you would have to have a really strong body, I'm guessing, to survive it, is what they're talking about. I doubt you, and I'm guessing even that the third kid, the youngest one, if he's like the slower one or like the one that they kind of just boss around, then he might even just be a failure. Like, who knows?
That's
I was just thinking about then maybe that's why you need like a strong body, because based on what I've just what your the little details I've been told, that's the only thing I can really think of is whatever this is, they obviously take over a host, a body.
I mean, he needed to be strong enough to handle the transformation.
The transformation of becoming whatever the heck they were becoming.
Whatever the thing is, yeah.
But I asked this guy, okay? I asked him point blank, and I talked to him a couple times. And I asked him point blank, I said, what do you think it was? And he said, have you ever seen the movie American Werewolf in London? He said, where the guy's hand goes up. And he goes, and I said, yeah. And he goes, that sort of like that, but not really. So he couldn't really give me, he couldn't put his finger on it and say, he's like, it's not like something, I've seen in any horror movie or anything like that. But because I asked him, I said, because I asked the question, and Nelly, you've heard me talk to people. I try not to lead them and say, did you see a werewolf? Was it a werewolf? Sir, did you see a reptilian? Was it a reptilian?
You saw a werewolf.
Yeah, because you can lead people and you can put thoughts in their head. Yeah. You know what I mean? And Nelly, Tony, y'all know when I interview people, I don't try to lead them or make them say what we want them to say. But I did ask this guy. I said, you got to tell me. I mean, what do you think that was? What do you think that was? What do you think it was happening?
Did he say anything about their teeth or anything?
No. There were no fangs popping out. Nothing. I mean, nothing like that. No hair popping,
Well, maybe it's some kind of thing like The Thing, that weird creature.
Okay, so that would go back to what Tony's saying, that it's some kind of parasite that would be... I mean, it's a creepy story,
It is.
And I got this one, several months back, and I told Nelly about it, and I said, well, we're going to hold that one for a good Halloween because it's such a creepy story, And
maybe it isn't a werewolf. Maybe that's just some kind of thing,
Well, I got another one along the same vein. I'll throw this one in there. There was a lady who lived in Tennessee, and she claimed, and then this is not a real long drawn out story. She sent me an email. I'll call her E. Okay, because her name starts with an E. I'll say E. E told me this story, and this was weird. She said that when she was out, at this place where they called like a lover's lane, where they would go out and make out and stuff, and she had a boyfriend that they weren't supposed to be together because their families didn't like each other. It was one of them Tennessee things where you ain't supposed to be with that person because they're McCoy and you're a Hatfield.
Forbidden love.
Yeah, forbidden love. So they were sneaking around, and two members of his family showed up running around on all fours. Yeah.
Harry?
No. Just running around on all fours with long, skinny their limbs had been like elongated, and their heads looked weird and misshapen. And she said that it was clearly like you could see the faces, like, and she was like, isn't that your brother? I'll just make up a name, Clem, Hey, it sounds kind of backwoodsy, okay? It sounds kind of Deliverance.
Cletus and Clem.
Ain't that Cletus and Clem? What are they doing out here? And Clyde's like, y'all get on back to the house. What you doing over here? Get on out here. And I'm not making fun of people from Tennessee. People from Texas talk goofy too. I'm just saying that this sounded very much like, and she even kind of laughed about, the whole weirdness of it. But she's like, years later, she could laugh about it. But at the time, she was terrified. And she said that why were they running around and coming up to the car and on all fours?
Were they saying anything in English, or were they making noises?
They didn't say anything. And then he just like put the car in reverse and they tore up out of there. And she was like, isn't that your brother, Clem, and your other brother or cousin, whatever he was? And she said the other guy, I think she said it was his cousin or something. And he was like, no, I don't know what that was. That was weird. And he just played it off like it was totally weird. And then,
Did he seem afraid? Did he seem afraid or?
Yeah, she said he was quite nervous.
Maybe he didn't want her to know the secret.
Yeah, I mean, what was the secret?
They're skinwalkers?
Well, I mean, I don't know. She did say that his family was part Cherokee, I believe. You know, a lot of people say they're Cherokee, but in that region, though, there were actual Cherokees. You know, not everybody's nowadays, I'm Cherokee, and they're like completely white or completely black, and you're like I have a friend he's African American, okay, and he claims he's Cherokee. Okay, if you want to be Cherokee, that's fine. Another one of my friends claims that his mother's full-blooded Cherokee. She looks blonde hair and blue-eyed to me, dude. But
don't feel bad. I wish I was Kickapoo just because of the name.
Yeah, that's really weird that you just chose that Indian to be. I'm just like, I just want to be a Kickapoo. I'm like, why? Because they go around kicking poo? Is that what? Anyways, point being is that this woman was traumatized by that, and she couldn't bring herself to see him anymore. And then he told her, "Yeah, I can't see you anymore." And she said that they lived up in the hills. You know, that his family was quite hillbilly-ish. You know, I don't know what that was. I mean, that was very bizarre.
Black magic of some sort? I don't know.
You got me.
Anything to stop forbidden love.
Well, anyways, that's a little sidelight story that goes along with that one. So what's the next story we're going to get into, Miss Nellie?
I like all of the stories you have.
I can't hear you.
I said I like all the stories you
have.
There
you go.
The Ouija board.
Okay. Now I have several Ouija board stories.
Well, this entails the
don't give the
okay.
Which I think I know which one you're talking about. The one that we had the one that we had talked about. Okay, this is a crazy Ouija board story. This happened in North Carolina, in a very old city, and these young girls were playing with a Ouija board, and they lived in a very old house. And the people, the rumor was the guy that lived there before had killed his wife in a fit of rage because he was jealous. She had another suitor or something, and this house was built in it's like an antebellum house, old South. And I'm sorry, I think it was South Carolina. South Carolina. And so this house was very old, and it was literally at one time like a plantation house. It was out in the country, kind of near a very old city. And they were playing with the Ouija board so that they could summon the ghost of the murdered woman or the murderer, her husband. And the main reason that they wanted to summon these ghosts was because the one girl worked for a company that was trying to get them to try to sell them an extended warranty on their vehicle. And so, I'm just kidding, and I'm joking, okay?
I don't think you needed to announce that was a joke.
I'm joking. I'm just kidding. So anyways, I'm gonna call her Jolynn. That's not her real name, but it's close. So Jolynn and her friend, they were playing with the Ouija board. And when this whole thing happened, are you okay?
Still laughing.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, they'll contact you any way they can. I mean, that's the bottom line. So anyways, they started playing with the Ouija board, and they did contact something. Like the planchette began to move, doing what it does. It's a very ominous thing. And these Ouija boards. Some people tell me, I played with Ouija boards for years. Nothing ever happened to me. Maybe that's why. Because you played with it and nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened good for you or bad for you. And that's why you got on meth and, you know, whatever. But then again,
maybe the spirits just don't want to visit you. I mean, you got to think about it like that. Just because some people are visitable doesn't mean that the spirit wants to visit you.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Like my friend, the ghost would be very bored.
Frank.
Yeah.
Frank, if you're out there, you know
much love.
We love you, Frank. But you know, if a ghost visited you, they probably fall asleep. But didn't you say he had a ghost in his room or something?
Yeah, it was.
We're not going to get
weird.
into it, but anyway. Anyways, these kids were playing with the Ouija board, and what ended up happening was it did what they always do. They they're like, "What's your name?" And this one said, "My name is Isabel or Layla Lalabelle," whatever the name was. I can't remember. It's been so long since I heard the story. Whatever the name was of the woman, you know, that was killed. And she said, Isabel, and they were like, okay, and when did you die? And she said, I died in 1826. I was murdered by Norman, whatever his name was, not Norman Bates, Norman Hayfield or whatever. I have to go back and read it, but I had this story committed to memory, so I don't need to do that. So anyways, what ended up happening was over the course of the next week or two, only when the friend would come over to visit, which was quite often, they were best friends. They've been growing up for years, whatever. When the friend would come over to visit and stay the night, that's when activity would happen. They would hear knocking on the walls, and whatever happened, apparently it attached itself to Jolene's friend, the one that would come over, because she finally fessed up and said, the night that I went home the next day, something crawled on the bed with me and shook me, and it woke me up. And she said, I looked up and I couldn't make out what it was, but it was hot, in the room, but I could still see my breath, like when I would breathe, like my face was freezing cold, and whatever this thing was sitting over me. She said at first it looked like the muzzle of a horse was over the top of her face. And so she said that, and I just closed my eyes and I thought, I'm dreaming. And she said she magically went back to sleep. She's like, amazingly went back to sleep. And she said that she woke up the next day and thought, I just had a horrible dream, but she didn't tell her friend about it because she had this feeling that this, whatever it was, because it kept messing with her and her family. She felt like if she told her friend Jolene, who lived in the old house where the people were killed or whatever, she said, I felt like if I told them that I would be attacked by this thing. And that she said that this thing eventually showed itself in the closet of her mother when her dad went out of town to work. They heard knockings on the wall, and they heard what sounded like hoof sounds, like literally like a horse on two legs walking up and down the stairs at night. So like if you took a horse and just put it on two legs. And she said that one day it manifested itself in the mom's closet. They saw like a swirling gray smoke when they had a lamp on, And this didn't happen in the house where they played with the Ouija board. This was the friend. And she said that the friend told her that we saw this thing. It appeared, it had like a horse hair type hair on its neck. Like the neck of a horse, but it had horns like a goat. Not big rounded ram horns, but like little horns. And the muzzle was kind of horse like, but it had teeth like a bear or a wolf. And that it had these weird looking slitted eyes like a cat. And it had these long skinny arms and these long skinny legs, and the legs had hooves. And she said this thing was like in the closet, and that it came out like running toward them, and they could hear like the hoof sound like coming toward them. And she said her and her mother ran out of the house screaming. They ran, they took off, and they were out in the middle of the night, screaming, and they ran to the neighbors to use the phone because this happened, back in the 80s. And she said that she went next door and she told the neighbors, who were just like, what the heck, it was like 11 o'clock at night, they go running over there. And so they called the police. The police went inside. They didn't find anything, didn't see anything. And eventually the dad came back from work or whatever, from his job out of town, and was like, oh, bull crap. I don't believe any of this. You're telling us all these nonsense stories. And she said that one day she woke up and she felt like she was just really thirsty. Like she had this overwhelming thirst. She went downstairs to drink some water. And this, whatever it was, was like along this long hallway she had to go to get back up the stairs. This thing was like hiding in the darkness of the hallway, and it jumped out and it grabbed her, and it wrapped itself around her and began to pull her into the wall. Like it was taking her into the wall. And she said she turned her head into like its chest because she was sideways and was trying to push it off of her. And all she saw was blackness. And she said that as it pulled her into this darkness, she could see stars, which is really weird. Like she's okay. And I asked her to describe it. Now, the person that this happened to, I didn't get the description I got from the secondhand description from the friend Jolene that told this story. that it was like if you looked at the cosmos, like stars up in the sky with a telescope at night, you see the stars, like that.
Yes.
She said that's what it looked like. She was being pulled out into like the cosmos. And then she woke up and she was asleep in her bed. And she woke up and she was drenched with sweat. And she said she was so exhausted. And she said all she wanted to do was drink water. Like she was just, but she said it must have been like she was out of her body, but that's not, she didn't tell the friend that. But when she was telling me that's what I said. And so I asked this woman, Jolene, I said, so what ended up happening at your house? Did anything happen at that house? She said, yes. She said that whenever that friend would come over, she would have a dream. The next day, she would have a dream, and it was always about this woman with this old timey dress, and she would walk up the stairs carrying like a light, like an old lamp, kerosene lamp, and she would walk up the stairs, and she would see this man with this stern look on his face, and he would be at the top of the stairs, and he would start striking her, and then he would kick her down the stairs. She would roll the bottom of the stairs. And then she would, right before she would die in the dream, she would look up and she would tell her, get out. And she would die. And she said this happened like multiple times until the point where she told her friend, I'll say the friend's name's Carrie, but she told Carrie not to come back over anymore, And so the friend did. The friend said, okay, fine. She wouldn't let her come over anymore. And so whatever it was in the board had attached itself, the demonic entity, whatever had attached itself to Carrie. And she said that there was more. Like there was a lot more stuff that went on. She got grabbed by her ankles one night by some invisible entity, not Jolene, but the girl, and was pulled off of her bed and slung into the wall, hitting her head on the wall. That she was flipped over in the bed, like flipped over and over and over, like she was like till she was dizzy and almost threw up because whatever this thing was just tormenting her. And that she actually stupidly bought herself a Ouija board and tried to communicate with this thing to ask what it wanted. And it spelled out, you dead. So yeah, there's that. And then her mom was slapped and had scratches on her face, had a chunk of her hair pulled out. So, yeah, all in all, a good time was had by all of the demons. So, yeah, thank you for unleashing more evil upon the world with your Parker Brothers special. Yeah. So, what do you think of that one, guys?
Scary.
Yep. Tony is so scared that he fell asleep. He is just completely...
it just seems ridiculous at this point. So many people just keep playing with these Ouija boards.
Well, this happened in 1984, I believe she said, or 82. I got to go back and look. But
okay.
Yeah, but she never played with one again. Now I asked her. I said, Jolene, she's got kids now, and they're older now, and whatever. And I asked her. I said, has anything weird happened to you? She said, no, not until we moved up to Virginia. She said we were living in Norfolk, and she said that they moved up there, and the first night they were there, they saw what looked like a black cat, she said it was a black cat. It was definitely a black cat, but it was very big. And she said its hair was just frizzed out everywhere. And she said that they were like, oh, there's a cat in this house. And they kind of just watched as it ran and went straight into the wall. But she said other than that, she don't think it was connected to the Ouija board, but she said other than that, she nothing really weird ever happened. But she did have a few incidents where she would see something small and black darting around the corner of her eye. So I told her, I said, that could have been a manifestation of something that's been following you. And you and your kids and your husband all just managed to see this thing run into the wall, whatever. She did say that when her dad died, he died of cancer. She said her dad, when he was on his deathbed, that he told her right before he died, he said, you were right. That he goes, there is something there, in the house, there was something there. That was her friend's dad or whatever, before he died. And so I guess he finally admitted that some stuff had happened to him too, but he was just trying to ignore it, But I think, in my own personal opinion, I believe that it all stemmed from the use of the Ouija board, which still to this day people say, oh, nothing weird's ever happened to me when I use it. Whatever. Moving along.
The antique mirror?
Oh man. Well, folks, like I said, we were going to be jumping around. We're going to do some different stuff. I'm doing the best I can. I had to take all kinds of stuff to get my voice usable, and I'm going to do the best I can to power through these stories for you folks because I care about you, the listeners, and I want you to have some spooky Halloween, and we love you guys. We love you listeners. And my wife is sick as a dog, and so am I. We're both over here. I'm actually sweating. I don't know what I'm sweating from, but if I die after these stories, you got what you wanted, folks. You got what you wanted.
Shut
all right.
up.
The stories killed me.
And I'm on site in a dangerous area where I should be paying attention, but here I am risking my life to give you guys these stories.
Exactly.
As I'm fighting off these 25 ninjas trying to steal these vehicles. So just think about that. Right?
Break in and steal the stereos. Yeah, and it's in the 40s tonight. It's very cold, and Tony's out there. He's very skinny. Anyways, you guys think about that and all we do for you. Yeah. Okay. So anyways, the story about the mirror. Okay, so this one here, I'm going to let you folks at home decide what you think this is. This was given to us by a lady named Dixie. Now, Dixie's now elderly. She's old. She's not ancient, but she is a senior citizen now. And she says she's young at heart. But when she was younger, she liked to go into old abandoned houses and find antiques and things like from the olden days, and take them home and fix them up and do all this stuff. She said that this happened to her when she was back in her 40s. She went into an old abandoned house. This happened in Colorado. And she said that she went into an old abandoned house and that they found an antique brush and mirror on an old armoire, dresser, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what that's called. Yeah, but it's like they found like an old antique brush and a mirror and a few little knickknacks. She said, little matchbox thingy. And so she said that she took these little trinkets home with her. It was an old abandoned house. So she said that it had been sitting there abandoned for a long time. And a friend of hers told her, there's this place out there. We want to go check it out. And so they did. And she said that her friend took a couple little things from there, she said that it was like a time warp, she went back in time and it had been sitting there abandoned for a very long time. And she said that obviously nobody had lived there. There weren't even any no trespassing signs because I was like, shame on you, Dixie, you were no trespassing. And she was like, no, there wasn't any signs or anything, there was nobody around, And so anyways, the one thing that she noticed when she first got home, let's just say the first thing that happened to her, she was looking at herself when it's one of them little small handheld mirrors, like the metal, had the metal or whatever. And she said it was like copper. It was really pretty. It was actual copper, like it was very nice, and it was very ornate, and it had little branches of trees and whatever on it, and she didn't have any pictures of it, and I asked her if she would send them to me. And then I kind of reconsidered and was like, actually, I don't really want to see it. Don't send it to me, please. And so she's like, well, I don't have it anymore. But she said that what happened was she was kind of looking at herself in the mirror when she was sitting in her bedroom and talking to her husband. And for a split second, she thought she saw somebody standing behind her, a woman dressed in white. And so she turned around and was like, whoa. And then there was nothing there. So then she said, okay, well, man, I'm just imagining things. I'm tired from the drive. It was a long drive. So she put it on the dresser and, she went to sleep. Well, nothing eventful happened for a couple days. And then she noticed that the mirror was turned over. She had turned it face down, And so she said, you know what, I'm going to take this mirror out and look at it, and clean it up a little bit. And I'm going to do something with it. When it was her day off, she decided to go ahead and clean the artifacts up and put them up on a shelf along with other antiques. Now, my stepmom, Sammy, Nellie, as you know, she collects antiques and puts these objects in her and my dad's house. I don't like them. Some of them are weird and creepy and whatever. And, I break them as many chances as I get. I'm just kidding. And Sammy, if you're listening, which I know you're not probably because you don't like this kind of stuff, but I wouldn't break any of your things, at least when you're not looking. So at least if you're looking at me. So she has all these antiques and stuff. And I've always thought that something weird could happen if you brought the wrong thing home. Now, thankfully, I've never heard or felt or saw anything weird from anything that she had or brought home. Now, her and my dad did offer for when we get our house built to give us some antique stuff. And I'm like, no, thank you. No, thank you. And Nellie, what do you think?
I like the desk.
Okay. I don't. Because someone probably, hung themselves off of that desk or did some other nefarious thing that I don't want to be associated with. Because I get these stories and I know what happens now. So I'm just kidding. If you want the desk, we can have it. It'll sit out in the barn. So what happens is people bring these objects home and you don't know what you're doing. You don't know who had that or what it's attached to or what it could be. You have no idea. For all you know, the people that were in that house were doing satanic rituals and used those artifacts. You have no idea.
It's a bread desk.
Well, they might have been breaking children into that bread. You
Oh
don't
my
know
goodness.
what like Hansel and Gretel. You don't know.
That's true.
You have no idea.
You're correct.
Willy Wonka could have had that desk for all days, killing kids and making candy out of them or something. I don't, it was crazy. I'm not down with all that, man. All right. So, anyways, we're over here talking about this lady. So, what happened was she turned the mirror over. That's what she realized that it had been up face down for a couple days. And looking back on it, nothing happened until she turned it back over and messed with it and sat it up on the shelf. She said the first thing that happened was that right after she cleaned it up and put it up and whatever, she was walking by it and she said it was clear as day. She said it was like that mirror sat on the opposite room from the main mirror on her dresser. And she said that she looked in the mirror from her dresser when she was brushing her hair. She walked by it and she sat down. First she walked by and she thought she saw something. Then she sat down and was kind of looking. And then she thought, oh, that's nothing. So she went and she started brushing her hair, not with the antique brush, but her regular hairbrush. And then that's when she saw it. She said, clear as day, she saw what looked like a woman in that smaller mirror looking back at her. And she thought, am I seeing this correctly? So she leaned forward. When she did, this woman reached out for her in the mirror, which made her like fall backwards. And she said she fell backwards so bad she thought she'd broken her hip. So she had to go to the hospital. Turned out she just had a deep bone contusion and that she was okay. She ended up coming home, no harm, no foul, whatever. So she said, man, I'm just, maybe I'm just imagining things, Then she started having these weird like night terrors. I guess you would call them like dreams, night terrors, whatever. And she would be shook and awake by something and she would turn and look on the side of the bed and there wouldn't be nothing there. And then she would turn and look on the other side of the bed and there would be something standing on that side from the other side where this thing had moved that quickly. And she would only get a glimpse of it. And then finally, one day, she comes home from work and she finds the antique mirror and the brush in the bathroom with clumps of hair on the brush. Okay. Gray hair. Like someone had gray hair and they had been brushing it and it was in the brush. And some of it was in the sink. And she said it wasn't like a little bit, like there was it was clumps of it. Like somebody had brushed their hair very vigorously. And she said that she was looking at it. And then she looked in the mirror in the bathroom and sitting in a bathtub, like literally like leaned back, like this thing was soaking itself, was an old woman with gray hair sitting in the bathtub. And she was like, oh my gosh. She turned around and this thing was gone. There was nothing there. But she said she saw the shower curtain move, kind of like, so she ran out of the bathroom and she told her husband, there's something weird going on. She started telling her husband about the dreams she was having. Then one night she was walking, she went downstairs to get a glass of milk. She said she couldn't sleep. So she went down. Obviously she's not lactose intolerant because if it was me, I wouldn't be able to sleep after that. But she's walking down the stairs to get herself a glass of milk because she couldn't sleep. And she heard it was a creaky footsteps, footfall. Like she said that she had wooden staircase. She lived in an older house, which had no paranormal activity prior to this, according to her. So I'll take her word on that. She said she was walking up the stairs to, after getting the milk, and she heard, when she stopped, the footfall continued. Now I know how that is. That's actually happened to me in a building I worked at. So she said that she was walking up as she was walking up the stairs. The creaking of the stairs was very prominent, and she was like, "What is that?" And then she stopped, and then she felt what felt like cold breath on the back of her neck. And she's like, I knew immediately that there was something there. There was something standing behind me. And she was like, "Oh my gosh!" And she said that it was dark, but they had a light from the hallway. So she looked to the right and she saw a shadow, like next to hers, like walking behind her. So she thought, this is a real person. So she turned around to confront the person, and she's like, I was fully prepared to like smack this person with the glass of milk. And she said that there was nothing there. But she heard a laughing, like a cackling, like a witch. And she said it was the scariest thing she'd ever heard in her life. And she saw the shadow on the wall still, and the shadow kind of moved towards her. Like she said, it kind of moved towards her. She didn't really know how to describe it. She said it looked almost like an amorphous shape, but then it kind of like moved toward, like came out of the wall towards her, like on its own. Like it was an actual shadow moving independent, and then it kind of gained some shape, and then she ran from it. And she said she dropped the glass, and she told her husband, and she said, hey, this shadow or whatever, this thing tried to attack me. He's like, he started at that point to want to get her psychiatric help. He did not believe that anything was going on. Nothing was happening to him until one day he said, she said, I think it's from the antique mirror and the brush. He's like, well, then enough of this. We've had enough of this crap. He goes and grabs them and a couple of other items too, like an old razor and some other things that they had taken, threw them in a box and said, tomorrow I'm taking them to the dump. I'll throw them away, And she goes, don't throw them on the property. Get rid of them. He said, okay, I'll do that. So that night, and something happened to him. Now he woke up the next day, and she said he was just like very nervous. He was putting butter on his toast, and his hands were shaking. And she's like, I'll call him Herb. She's like, Herb, what's wrong? And Herb told her, he goes, I saw something really weird last night. He said, I saw what looked like a woman in a white gown with long gray hair, looked like a witch. And she was pulling the covers. She pulled the covers off of me, lifted them up, and just completely ignored him. But she said that she was sticking her hands into the bed like she was trying to get to that box, which was an old cigar box. And I believe it was like an old King Edward's box, that's what she said. And so she said that he had put it in the box, whatever, and that he clearly heard what sounded like metal coming out of the box, like something and dropping. It had pulled it out, and it was this little antique razor, whatever, and that the mirror was on top of it or whatever. When he woke up, it had been moved out of the box and put on top. And here's another thing that's really weird too. According to the person that we talked to about this story, she said that these objects began to age. Like after she'd cleaned them up and everything, and they looked new, or looked not new, but look, because you don't want to mess with antiques much and make them too, whatever, because you could mess up the integrity of the antique. But she said that they began to look like they were corroding, and that the mirror began to develop spots, and that and she thought maybe she'd done something when she cleaned it or something, and then the razor began to rust real bad, and that the brush began to fall apart. And she was just like, these things are like they were decaying or something, And she said that he took the objects and put them in a bigger box and took them and said, I'm taking them to the dump. I'm going to throw them out, whatever. And as he was driving down their driveway, a long gravel driveway, one of his tires popped. It blew and slung him into a ditch. And that these objects flew out of the truck, as unbelievable as that sounds, and flew through a barbed wire fence. And they had to go climb through the barbed wire fence to go get them. And he cut his back real bad on the barbed wire. And then he said that after this, now this is what gets weird. It gets weirder. He cut himself and he bled onto the mirror. Now, she pointed that out to me. She said that after that happened, she said that she thought, you know what? I don't want to mess with these objects, She said that he brought them back in, and she's like, why did you bring them back in? She just left them there, left them outside. And he's like, well, I don't want to leave them out there, something, so the kids will be out there playing, the grandkids and whatever, and they might get a hold of them, whatever. So he left them, instead of leaving them where they were, he brought them back inside. And she said that she noticed that there was smeared blood on the handle and on the mirror. And she's like, what is this? And he's like, well, when I was bleeding, I got blood on my hands. So I must have touched the mirror with my bloody hands or whatever. And she was like, didn't think anything of it at the time. Just thought, well, this is just, whatever. And And she's like, well, I'll get rid of them tomorrow. I'll do it. And at this point, she knew that there was something wrong with these objects, like they were cursed. Something had followed her back from that old house. She kept seeing this woman. But she said after the blood touched the mirror, she was convinced that was the timeline, that's when this happened. She said she was sitting down, brushing her hair the next day, getting ready for work, and she was going to take the objects with her and throw them in the dumpster at work or whatever. And she said it was like on a Monday. She just woke up and was like, I'm going to go and do this. She said she got up for work. She was brushing her hair, getting ready to start her week, and she clearly saw this white smoke start to manifest itself behind her. So she sat up and she turned around, and usually when she would look directly at these things, it would be gone. She said, no, this thing continued to materialize, and when it did, the face was like old, like an old hag with long teeth, like sharp fangs on bottom and top. And she said it looked like its mouth looked like it was wide, like it was wide open, and there were little bitty tiny teeth in between the fangs on either side and on top and bottom. And she said that, but the mouth was almost like, she said, if you take like the fangs of a baboon. And she said with this elongated mouth, that this woman's mouth, and it literally, she closed her eyes because this thing had just kind of leapt toward her, and she said she closed her eyes and all she felt was like a cold gust of wind go through her. But she said after it went through her, for 2 days, she sat in bed sick. She got real violently ill. She had to stay in bed, stay at home, and she couldn't go to work. She called in sick, and she didn't know what was wrong. And she kept having these fever dreams. And when she would have these fever dreams, this entity, she called it, would come out of the mirror, out of the mirror on the dresser, and would sometimes crawl up to the bed, or it would like float toward the bed. And it always had these humongous fangs. And she said it was like it would, in this dream-like state, it would like bite her in different places, and it felt like it was draining her energy. And so she told her daughter, said, hey, can you please get your husband, when he comes over, because they were coming to bring her some food and try to make her feel better, whatever. Can you ask your husband to drop these off, to get rid of these objects, whatever? And so this is what's crazy. Like, he put them in his truck and went to go out, and he's when they were going to leave, whatever. And the truck wouldn't start. And so then he had to get somebody to jump him, give him a jump. He got into town, had to take his truck in. The alternator was bad. A whole bunch of stuff was going on, yada, yada, yada. And those things sat in the truck. Now, something happened between the time that they were in the truck at the automotive shop, and from the time he went and picked it up, the objects disappeared. The box, all those objects, every one of them disappeared. So somebody at the automotive shop had to have either stolen them or they just disappeared. And now she never did figure out, the family never could figure out, like, what happened to them. Did someone steal them that worked at the mechanic shop? And she said, and if they did, I don't know why they would want them. She said that they looked terrible and like they had been decayed and whatever. But she said that after the objects were taken out of the house, that the haunting, I guess, as she called it, was stopped from this vampiric creature. Whatever it was attached to that mirror. Now, here's the thing I'm going to tell you at the end of the story. She talked to her friend about this multiple times, and her friend's daughter was with them that day. And the daughter said that when she went into one of the closets in that old house, and she had not told them this, that she saw what looked like a pentagram drawn on the floor, and that there were black candles all the way around it, and that there was black candle wax all over the place. And I was like, wow, that would have been pertinent information to know before you decided to take objects out of that house. But the objects that her friend took didn't cause any kind of problems or chaos in their house. So what do you think of that? I mean, what was that?
Maybe the objects were used in the pentagram area.
Or they belonged to someone that was doing something.
Yeah.
Spooky.
Don't take things that aren't yours.
Don't take things that don't belong to you. Obviously, that's the moral to the story. But people do. People will go into old houses and they'll take things out of old houses and they'll go and they'll whatever. But yeah. Every time I hear a story now about a hag type creature or something, I always think of what happened to you, Tony, out there at when you saw that weird hag like entity over there when you're working at Brackenridge.
Yeah, I remember. Was it Brackenridge?
Yeah, it was at Brackenridge. Yep, I believe that's where it was at.
Okay. I thought it was a different place.
No, it was down in South Austin.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I knew it was down in South Austin. I just didn't know it was Brackenridge. But,
it was Brackenridge. But anyways, so that neighborhood's already done and built and everything. So, you know, we can mention
cool.
Yeah, we can mention the name of it now. But yeah, so there's no more building out there. Yeah, Tony had his incident with a vampiric type entity. And my voice, my throat is really, really starting to get to me. But man, I had a bunch of other stories I wanted to talk about. I had a whole lot of stories I had lined up, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle that, folks. I will do one more.
Montreal.
You want to do the Montreal?
Yeah.
I got two that we could close it out with. One is a dogman story and one is a Bigfoot story. I do not know which one would be more terrifying. I think the Bigfoot one would probably be more terrifying just because it was, you know, but the dogman story is a little shorter, so maybe I'll do that one.
Well, if the Bigfoot's more terrifying, this is Halloween, so.
Well, but people love dogman, so for some reason they just love the heck out of that nasty thing. So
people are dog people. What can you say? People
are dog people, so why should it be? You and dogman should get along so awfully, probably because it wants to eat you and take your soul. But here, we'll talk about dogman. We'll do this one. This one was the story of Montreal. Nellie likes this one. These people gave us a story. They were at a park in Montreal, Canada. They were on vacation. They were not Canadian. They were from another place, not America either. But anyway, they were in Montreal and they were visiting. Montreal's a very cool city. It's got a lot of beauty. And they were staying at a hotel and they were at a park. And for whatever reason, they saw what looked like a wolf on its hind legs with the upper body of a man, quintessential dogman, werewolf type creature. And it was standing behind a tree and it was like sticking its head out and it would look at them and then it would go back behind the tree. And nobody else in the park noticed this. Like it seemed like no one was paying attention. Nobody noticed this thing doing what it was doing. Like it was just there and like there was like people everywhere. And they were like, nobody's seeing this but her and her husband. Now, she said, the wife said, if it would have been just me and my husband wouldn't have been with me, I would have thought, man, I'm losing my freaking mind. But she's like, do you see that? And her husband's like, yeah, I see it. And she's like, what is that? Then she said that this thing came out from behind the tree. It was on all fours and it began to kind of just jog toward them. And that was her exact words. Like it literally jogged toward them. Like it ran toward them, like, you know. And now they speak perfect English. They're not from America or Canada, but they speak perfect English. And they don't want to give their names or whatever. But yeah, this happened a couple years ago. They were on vacation. And so the guy pulls out his camera, his cell phone, and starts taking pictures of it. And he said that when he took the pictures, they came out. Like you could see this creature, very weird looking creature running around, looked like the front part was like a man and it was like running around on its arms. And then the back legs were like a dog's. And he said that it had a wolf's head, but it wasn't overly like big. So it's probably about 6.5 feet, not these 7.5, 8 foot tall, you know, big dog man you hear about. And he said that this thing ran toward them and then nobody else was paying attention. It was like everybody was just completely ignoring this creature and it was like zeroed in on them. And he said that they got panicky. So they got up and they ran across the street. And when it got to the edge of the park and on the other side of the street, it stopped and it stood up and it just stared at them. And they were like, oh my gosh. And she was like, honey, you need to get rid of those pictures. And she said that this thing was like not communicating like you and I would have a conversation, like we're talking, but that it was like telling them, you can't have those pictures. You cannot, you know, and that she felt like they weren't even supposed to be seeing this creature, that this thing was doing whatever it was doing and no one was supposed to be seeing what it was doing. And it was angry. It was very angry that they could see it. It was not happy at all. And so they had a couple blocks that they walked, and they got on a little bus or whatever, and they went back to the hotel. And she said that they were really shook up. And then that night they talked about it. And he said that they when they looked at the pictures, they were very blurry. That the pictures were blurred. And she was like, they're not even good pictures. It just looks like an amorphous blob of nothing. You can't really tell what it is, you know. And so she said that it was like he was convinced that his phone had malfunctioned or something had happened, and you know, and so he didn't know what. And she kept saying, "No, it's that thing, that creature, this wolf-like creature that we saw. We never should have been taking pictures of it. We shouldn't have been staring at it. We shouldn't have been looking at it." So she said they went to bed, and she said that in the middle of the night, the bed was vibrating, it was shaking. And that they both upright out of the bed, and they saw, both of them, clear as day, in their hotel room, this wolf-like entity. It was black with a little bit of brown, and she said that it looked just like a werewolf, and the upper body was like a man's. Even the chest didn't look like dog-like hair. The bottom legs and everything looked like hair, like fur, but the upper body looked like dense human hair. And it had a wolf's head on it. And she said it had red eyes and that it was staring at them. And she said that they both started screaming, and that when they did, this thing just kind of like literally started to shrink before their eyes and just kind of disappeared into like smoke at the foot of the bed. When they turned the light on, they clearly, both clear as day, saw this happen. And then the guy got up and said, "We're getting out of here. We're leaving." And he said that when they were getting their stuff together, they got downstairs and they decided they were going to leave early. They were going to go to another hotel in the middle of the night. They didn't know what they were going to do. They were just going to leave. They weren't going to stay there. And she said, well, obviously this thing followed us from the park, you know, this thing, whatever it was. And she said that it didn't end like there. They went and they got another hotel. And the next day they sat in the hotel lobby for a long time. Then they went to the hotel the next day, another hotel. And she said that night, her husband was taking a shower. They had gone to a movie and went and saw some museum or something. And then the next day, their husband was taking a shower, and they thought, well, maybe that's the end of it. You know, nothing's going on, you know. She says she looks over in the corner of the room, and there was like this black mist or smoke, as she said, and this thing began to appear. And she said at this point, it was squatted down, like with its arms resting on its weird dog-like legs, and that it leapt forward and began to crawl toward the bed, towards her really fast, and that she like threw her phone at it, and it went through this creature and it disappeared. Once again, with like black smoke, only this time, she said that she began to pray, say the Lord's Prayer. She said she's very devout. She's, you know, Christian. And she said that there was like this black soot-looking stuff all over the floor. And that his phone was gone. Like they looked everywhere, high and low, for his phone. They couldn't find it. And he's like, I know I had it. I had my phone, whatever. Well, the people at the theater where they had gone at earlier had called and said, hey, they called the places where they were at. They called the people in the theater and they said, did you find a phone? At first they said no. The next day they said, yeah, one of the people turned it in, whatever. We got your phone. And so they went and they picked the phone up. Now, when they went to check for the pictures, not only were there no blurry pictures, there were no pictures on the phone at all. Like I'm talking like not just no pictures of this wolf-looking creature, but like there were no pictures. Like there were no pictures at all. Like all of his pictures had been erased from his phone. And now here's what's even creepier. They said that one of the people from the museum was this really tall, skinny guy with really dark hair and dark eyes. And she said that he was very, very menacing looking. And when he gave them the phone back, he said, you need to be really careful what you keep on your phone. And she was like, excuse me? And he said, oh, I said, I'm glad that we could find your phone. And she was like, that's not what you said. And he goes, what did you think I said? And then this woman came up, you know, and they were both standing there. They were both very tall. They said that they were over 6 foot, even the woman. And he said that they kind of leaned in and they were like, what do you think that, you know, that I said? And he's like becoming almost aggressive. And that the woman told the couple, like, is there a problem? And she said, she didn't say it like, oh, is there a problem with my employee being like aggressive? but like, is there a problem, with you, And she was like, no, there's no problem. And he's like, I had pictures on my phone, but they're all gone. And he's like, well, sir, there's nothing we can do about that. And then when they turned around to walk off, the girl said something like, it's probably for the best. And the guy turned around and was like, what? And she's like, then once again, she changed it up and said, oh, we wish you the best. And it was like, almost like they knew what they were doing. They were saying stuff, but then saying, twisting it around. And so, yeah, very, very odd. Very, and that story gave me the chills. It freaked me out. And she said, she goes, I like Montreal. It was a beautiful place. She said, but I never want to go back because of what happened, But so that's that story. That's the Dogman story that Nelly liked. She wanted me to tell Dogman. Or
it just seems so petty to whisper under your breath like that and change it. Like,
yeah,
you don't need to do that.
Yeah, unless there was something behind it, And what was even weirder was he said that he's like, I didn't even take my phone out of that theater the whole time. I don't even know how that they could have gotten a hold of it. How did I lose it? He couldn't figure it out. It was weird. He said the whole thing was just bizarre. It was just a weird thing. And he said that nothing weird other than that had ever really transpired. They had a vacation. They went all over, and that was it. But folks, I hope you enjoyed this Halloween. What is the word we would use? Iteration? Is that a word?
Special?
Halloween special. We hope you enjoyed this edition of the second annual Halloween show of Paranormal Round Table. I'm your host, Josh Turner. They call me Wolf, and I'm with Nelly, my wife, and Tony.
The face of the show, Tony.
My godson, who thinks he's the star of the show, Mushu. A non-player.
I'm not the star of the show. I'm just the face. The most important part.
Oh, okay.
You can be the voice, I guess.
Well, you definitely have a face for radio too. So, anyways, folks, that's all we have for tonight, and from each of us here at PRT. Even though we're sick, we got it done. We got it done, and we're glad we could. And I really enjoyed the doing this. And I'll probably not be able to talk for the next 2 or 3 days. Everybody's probably going, thank God this guy is not going to be able to open his mouth and talk. And Nelly's like, yay.
Just kidding.
Okay. So what did you think, Nelly? What do you think?
I liked it. I hope everybody else likes it.
What do you think that last thing was?
That really creeped me out.
Interdimensional Dogman?
Yeah, I think so.
Very weird.
It's scary how it
We have another one that's similar to that. We're going to tell at some point.
Which one?
Here. The one where they kind of, I'm not going to give it away.
Just a little bit. Just tell us.
Well, there's another one very similar to that one, folks. It is very similar along that vein, but not completely. And I know we keep talking about it, and we're going to get out the Hernandez Ranch episodes. Like I said, there's going to come out pretty soon. We have a lot of interviews and stuff lined up coming out. I've been talking to some people, trying to get some things done. I've just not been able to pin down when I can do, I've been asked to be on several other shows, and I've been kind of not really declining, but not really accepting it either because I have too much going on with mine. But maybe that's what I need to do to get my my name out there a little more, just so we can get some more listeners. Because the more listeners and subscribers we get, the less I have to work, laddies. And see, I can't do an Irish accent. See. Okay. So anyways, the less I have to work, and then the more I can devote to this, because I'm actually building a house, and I'm going to have a studio in my house, and I'm going to devote a lot of time to doing this show, and maybe even releasing more episodes throughout the week. So you guys can get more than just an hour a week. But it's going to take a lot of hard work, and I'm going to need you people to get out there and spread the word to Paranormal Round Table. Remember, we're going to do giveaways. We're going to have shirts and all this other merchandise we're going to be giving away. So we're going to do Paranormal Round Table. Go to the Paranormal Round Table link. We're going to pick someone from the chat room. We're going to pick someone from the Paranormal Round Table. I'll even pick someone from the comments. How about that? I'll throw that one in there too. We'll pick someone out from the comments. I'll let you do that, Tony. You go to the live chat. You pick someone out, and you can pick someone out on the comments, or we can. And then Nelly, you can pick someone out for yours, and then we'll have somebody besides me pick someone out for the Paranormal Roundtable giveaway. That way, it's something nobody can claim that I'm being partial to somebody.
We have backpacks too. We're giving away, right?
Backpacks. Yeah, we got all kinds of stuff. We got coffee mugs, and we got stickers, and we got T-shirts, and
there's scratch and sniff. You can smell Bigfoot. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I tell you what, we are going to be making hats soon too. We just made a deal with Lids. We're going to have them do a bunch of hats. So we're going to have bunches of hats. We're going to start giving away those along with the autographed books. Okay. So on the Paranormal Round Table group, I'm going to be giving away an autographed book like I always do every week. And we're going to be giving away a T-shirt with a little gift pack with different knickknacks in it. And then on the Paranormal Encounters, which is Tony's, we're going to have... Actually, you know what, Tony? You're going to have to pick the person for Paranormal Encounters, so you can't do the live chat pick. I'm going to pick someone else to do that.
All right.
Yep.
There's going to be a winner from Paranormal Encounters.
And Paranormal Lounge. Did you not listen to the beginning?
Yeah, I did.
Your head's so full of cold medicine you can't even think. So that's it, guys. We're gonna have a winner. 2 of them from Paranormal Round Table, but one of them's for the autographed book that we give away every week, and the other one's for the Halloween giveaway. And then Nelly, go and there's going to be a link on there that I'm going to drop for the show, Paranormal Encounters and Paranormal Lounge on Facebook. Leave a comment.
And then on YouTube, right?
Yep. And then we're gonna pick somebody from the comments on YouTube, and we're gonna pick somebody from the chat. And so we're gonna have all those giveaways. 6 people. 6 people. Yeah, sexy people. So, anyways, that's what we're doing, folks. And from everybody here at PRT,
happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Be sure and
happy dysfunctional Halloween.
It sure will be. Be sure and social distance when the kids knock on the door. Make them stand 6 feet away and throw candy at them. From everybody here at Paranormal Roundtable, Mushu, Nelly, me, Anthony, everybody, good night.